MFR.ca.
Alrighty, welcome back to Rise and Shine Manitoba here on ASTV Productions. Of course, like I said before, Harry Siemens, the guy who is, of course, the man of the Farm Report here on the show. Of course, the Farm Report, sponsored by Wolf Enterprises. We'll play the little graphic we got here to welcome in Harry now. Hopefully we can hear him on this Monday morning. If not, I guess we'll have to reschedule. But Harry, try talking to me if I can.
Good morning.
I can hear you. I can hear you. That's
great.
Awesome. Harry, how you doing? Thank you so much for joining me this morning, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Yeah, it's a lovely morning, and here we are.
Yeah, well, it's great that I can hear you. It's great that we're going to have a chance to talk about agriculture here in Manitoba since the last time that we've talked. So, yeah, what's been going on in the agriculture world here in Manitoba since July 14th? I mean, June 14th.
Well, you know, very much the same as maybe the last week. I mean, we talked last week about the rains and how beneficial they were. And now we're continuing to wait for more rains, and the other rains were very beneficial, but hot weather and winds depleted soil moisture levels again to a large extent. So we're not every places. There are some places that have good moisture, other places that are waiting. And so I did an interview with Brunel Sabrin. He's an agronomist from Antera Agronomy. He and his wife run the company, and he's from St. Jean, Manitoba. And I talked to him last week, and he described the crop conditions across the province as good, the bad, and the ugly. So we've been dealing with flea beetles, and basically that season is behind us. So they've been controlled and looked after for the canola, and now of course we've got grasshoppers, and grasshoppers don't choose crops. They just devour what comes in their way. And so because we've had 2 to 3 years of relatively dry weather, as Brunel told me, he says the grasshopper stands continue to expand each year because when it's dry they flourish. So we've seen grasshopper damage in ditches. We've seen grasshopper damage in crops on the edge of the fields. We've seen grasshopper damage in pastures. And so right now it's an interesting time. People are going to be using fungicides, but as Brunel said, you have to make sure there's enough crop to make sure that fungicides work, and that basically looks after some fungus that develops in crops, and so people use that as a management tool in order to control them. So spraying, if you hear the airplanes flying and the big high boys driving, that's looking after the crop and managing the crop protection products so that they give the crop the best opportunity. And it's totally different management when you're working with various weather conditions and also moisture conditions. It's and Brunel also told me, he says you'll see in one part of the field the crops have developed better because there was more moisture. In another part of the field it's a little bit different. And when moisture isn't as adequate as we've had over the years, then a little bit can do a lot to change from one part of the field to the other.
Yeah, and just something that I'm curious about is just the technology there is now. I guess not technology, but just the products out there like sprays and just stuff that can help protect against insects with crops and stuff like that. What are the could you just talk about how far sprays and stuff like that have come?
How helpful?
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? Totally helpful. You take an infestation of canola, or flea beetles in canola. I mean, they could devour that crop, and that crop is, this year it's going to be a little different because the stands are different. But excuse me, you can take a canola field at 40 bushels to the acre, for example, and the amount of dollars that farmers get for that canola, and if they cannot stop the damage, it can destroy the crop. It can mean a huge loss or a huge gain. And so, crop protection, you have the pesticides which kill insects, and you also have those that kill disease, and also kill weeds. So all of that is in there. It's managed so tightly. It's all done by by calibration of sprayers and computers and GPS and the kinds of things. I remember when my father would go out, and he, first of all, I can see him standing on top of a sprayer with a 5 gallon pail of chemical, and he would dump it into it, and some would splash on his pants, and oh, it was horrible. No gloves, no mat, nothing. There was no protection, and and there was no electronics to measure where you went on the field and whether you left out. So that was all done human error, human. And
Yeah.
now guys can just the GPS, and there's different technologies involved. They can basically go down the field and they don't even overlap an inch. It's just like precision. It's called precision agriculture, and that's what makes using those products so much better, because you're not wasting and you're not spraying unnecessarily. Your application is on that particular crop that you want, and then from there, and when we look at the various companies that have developed the various products, the testing and knowing that it's safe for human health and so forth, is phenomenal. It takes probably $1 billion to bring a new product online, and it may take 5 to 7 years to do so. And so it's quite a intense agriculture that we're involved in today.
Yeah, that's crazy. Just of how things used to be done back then compared to how they're done now. A lot
Exactly.
safer now than back then for sure. But just other than sprays and pesticide stuff like that, could you speak about just the technology we see today in terms of equipment like tractors and stuff like that?
Yes, I mean, I grew up. My dad was a John Deere man, green color, and so we drove lots of John Deere tractors. But I remember from the smallest tractor that would be like the smallest field tractor that we had would be like a yard tractor today. That's
Mm,
that's the difference. You get in, and then we had diesel, and then we had gas, and now you can have diesel and gas, and so you have tractors that have tracks, just like caterpillars used to have,
yeah,
and the reason they have tracks is it doesn't compact the soil. When you're driving with the rubber tire wheels and the heavy equipment, and often you would be driving in the same tracks year after year, you would compact the soil, and when you compact it, it doesn't have the same energy. It doesn't do the same thing for the seed that you put into it. So now we have compaction, we have tracks, and horsepower. You're looking at 4, 5, 600 horses under a under a tractor, and that tractor can well cost in the upwards of 750,000, maybe $1 million. And so
wow.
yeah, yeah, and
Yeah,
that's kind of the technology that's gone in, even though the engines are still engines, right? But the technology, the automatic shifting, and all of that, and the comfort of the cab. I mean, they can set the GPS and go from one end of the field to the other, which is like a half a mile, would be like 3/4 of a kilometer, pretty well.
yeah,
And you see guys with their computers because it's auto steer. I mean, that GPS steers that tractor, and
wow.
and they don't.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's nuts.
I,
Just
I'm going to just tell you one quick story about my friend Rolf Penner. He farms at Morris, Manitoba, just east. And he tells me how he got into what's called auto steer. And there's a Hutterite colony across the road from him. And one day he sees a tractor coming down the field, and he sees the driver in that tractor with his feet on the steering wheel, and reading a magazine and driving straight. And Rolf hadn't gotten into that kind of technology, but when he saw his neighbor's boy, relaxing that's when he went out and bought his first used auto steer that where he could now also relax from one end to the other.
Wow, that's a great story. And yeah, just it's crazy what technology has allowed us to do, and just these prices that you've been telling me about. Lots of money, obviously, an investment to invest in technology and equipment like this nowadays. Just eh, is there certain farmers out there that might need a bit more help in terms of raising this type of money to buy this equipment, or does the money that they make from like the crops that they sell and stuff like that really go towards them having this type of equipment?
See,
Like, here,
what happens on those big pieces of equipment? Very little money changes hands in a lot of cases. The way the taxes are set up and the way the machinery companies have financial institutions supporting them, having their own finance companies. Farmers in a lot of cases actually lease the equipment, so they pay a lease equipment because that lease equipment then can be tax written off instead of spending $1 million of capital buying a tractor. So they, in a lot of cases, the machinery companies are interested in moving iron, so they'll encourage farmers to trade up every couple of years, the bigger farmers, so that the smaller farmers can buy the used equipment. I've known salesmen, John Deere salesmen, to or any tractor company salesman, to have one tractor. This farmer up here, the bigger one, he wants a new tractor, so he's got a trade in. And then there's another farmer, and I've noticed where they've actually done 5 trade-ins all the way down. From the top guy, he buys a new tractor. His goes to another farmer. That farmer's tractor goes somewhere else, and that one goes somewhere else. So that's kind of really ingenuity in making sure that farmers and it's all about cash flow. It's all about how big your farm is and how much crop you need to put in. I mean, we have 30,000 acre farmers, and we have, like my brother and his son, 1,500 acre farmers. And so, and some, the difference between the 1,500 acre farmer nowadays is he has one tractor. The 30,000 acre farmer may have 5 or 6.
wow.
And so that's kind of how that works.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, it's good that there are like there's ways for these farmers to lease stuff instead of just buying the equipment, which
Yeah,
is a
that's
lot
right.
of money, a lot of money for sure. But let's move away from equipment. Let's just talk about the wind and how that's affected agriculture in Manitoba with just the wind that we've been seeing on some hot days as well as just any day.
Yeah, the wind has been very, it can be very destructive depending again how consistent and how much it's how what velocity it's coming in at. I mean, I think we talked about the last time on June 6th when we had wind twisters come into different farms
Yeah.
and take down buildings and so forth. And that's all fine. I mean, insurance companies are there to help and people to clean up. But the crops that are standing, just you take for example, it's 38 degrees Celsius, and the crop is sitting out there on a dry field, black field, and the winds come, and you know what it does to you and me.
Yeah.
We get wind. I get wind burn very, very quickly. While the crops are out there, and especially if they're not growing as healthy as they have been in the past. With the kind of moisture conditions we've had, there's been all kinds. So yeah, the wind can damage the crops in various ways, and so sometimes it'll take the crop out. Sometimes it'll just damage it so that when the crop is setting different stages in order to keep developing to where we want it to go, the wind can come at the wrong time and knock off things that the plant needs in order to develop further. So yes, the wind is really damaging, especially when it's hot wind and it's a strong velocity.
Let's speak about the rain now. I had a chance to look at your Twitter, and you retweeted some stuff about farmers saying the rain that we've gotten is nice, but we still need more. Just speak about what. I guess I'm not sure if it's rained much in the past week, but how's the rain situation looked so
Well,
far?
the biggest rains we had were the week before we talked last Monday. Then we had
Yeah.
some significant rainfalls, on average of 1.5 to 2 inches, even 3 inches in some places, which was super. But since then, we've only had showers locally at different places. We've had really no rain to speak of here in Winkler, and so we're still waiting for the crop. As they said, the last time the crop was in survival mode, it gave it the extra time to continue to develop. But now again, we're into that survival mode to take it to the next level. So we're really short in not all places. We have some places that have good moisture. But here in southern Manitoba, to where I live, from here to Winnipeg, again, various areas, it varies from field to field and from farm to farm. But on average, we need a couple of inches of rain really quickly now in order to salvage a good crop instead of a mediocre crop.
Yeah, just no doubt about that for sure. Just yeah, the more rain, the better. I would say for
Yep,
sure, in
totally.
times like this. But we're going to leave you off with this one, Harry. We're going to start making a tradition. It's the farming tip of the week with Harry Siemens. What's your farming tip of the week for farmers out there in Manitoba?
The farming tip is first of all, my hat off to the managers, the farmers that are out there doing this job day after day. And my tip is basically stay with what you're doing. A lot of farmers are used to what's going on, but this year is special. So it means that the other tip of part of that is, if you need some emotional help, some mental health, because they're all human, look for it. Look for whatever help you can get in order to make sure you continue on the right path.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I love the message, Harry. Thank you so much for joining me on this week's edition of the Farm Report on Rise and Shine Manitoba. We'll see you again next week, and I'm sure we'll have some more updates in the world of agriculture.
Totally. You bet.
All right, Harry Siemens, the man on the Farm Report, and joining me on this